here is an example of a question 5 type of difficulty out of 25. The real difficulty here is understanding the English sentence. 25% less than 120 is 1/4 more than what number? So there's an is here, and what the is means is that that's an equal sign. And this is 25% less than 120. What that usually means is that it's 70%, 75% of 120. Okay, I'm going to write that down here. We'll decide what is the best way to handle the 75%. Okay? On the right-hand side, it says 1/4 more than what number? What number? That means that I have an x. And so if this is x, then what does 1/4 more than x mean? Does it mean this? That's what you might think it means, because it seems to be 1/4 more than. But no, when you write 1/4 more than what number in this context, when you're talking about percents, the question actually means 1/4 x more than x. So for example, in English, sometimes I will say that the cost of a dress was some amount of money, and then the cost of the dress increased by 1/2. And that would actually mean increased by 1/2 of the price of the dress. Okay, but once you do this, you start to see that it might be the most convenient to do this sort of a question with fractions. And so, if I have 75% of 120 equals this, the real equation I have is 3/4 of 120 equals 1/4 x plus x, which is 5/4x. Actually, this multiplication sign looks like an x. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to replace it with parentheses, just so that I don't confuse myself. But once you see this, then there are many ways to finish this from now. For example, you could try to simplify each side. I'll give a different tip. Since I want to do this faster, if I want to know this x, I already know I need to multiply across that way. So x equals 4/5 times 3/4 times 120. And I did this on purpose because the 4's cancel. And this shows the general idea that to do this efficiently, it's best to save the multiplication for the end. And so what is left is 3/5 times 120. I chose the number 120 on purpose because 120 divided by 5 is 24. This is a useful factorization to know, and our number 24 reappears again. 24 is 4 factorial, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 120 is actually 5 factorial, 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And the fact that these numbers appear frequently makes it useful to recognize quickly what happens when I divide like this. 3 times 24, now I have 72 equals x, and I'm finished. Another comment I wanted to make on this question is that it's now, if you're used to this sort of thinking, you can actually even do this kind of question in your head. Because, for example, when I look at this, if I already read that this what number is the thing I have at the end, then you can already see that I'm going to have to take my 120, reduce it by 25%, so I'll need to do something like 120 reduced by 25%, and then, since I take 1/4 more than what number, to get the number, it's 4/5. I'm just showing you how one would do this if you're actually quite comfortable with this kind of multiplication. And then at that point, you finish it in the same way as before. And 120 times 3/5, we got all the way to the answer of 72. And that's really all there is to say about this kind of a question.